I'm here at St. Stephen's Catholic Church in Portland, Oregon. Today is April 16th, which is the feast of St. Benedict Joseph Labré. About 10 years ago, I guess it was, I was reading through the entry in the Roman Martyrology for today, and I saw that name, and it sort of jumped out at me. I had heard the name before, but didn't know anything about him, and so I set about to read a little bit about him, and as I read a little bit, then I wished to know a little bit more. So I ended up reading a full-length biography and really came to admire and love this saint. So I'm here to tell you about the life of Saint Benedict Joseph Labré. Now, here is a painting of him, famous painting. You see if you look up images for him. And Saint Benedict Joseph Labré, he was born in the north of France in 1748. He was the eldest of 15 children, and his parents were farmers. He had great potential. In fact, he was the most intelligent school in the village. He was the most intelligent student in the village school. So his parents decided that it would be worth it to send their oldest son to study for the priesthood. And at the age of 12, Benedict went to live with his uncle, and his uncle was a priest at a neighboring village. Well, his favorite spot became the library, and his favorite book was an old collection of sermons by a French priest who had gone blind. Young Benedict was so taken by these sermons that he began to desire more and more to be a saint. He wanted to give himself completely to God in a life of self-denial. Well, one night, a visiting priest came to stay, and all evening he spoke about his visit to the abbey of La Grande Trappe. Well, young Benedict was captivated, and from then on his dream was to become a Trappist monk. Well, meanwhile, the plague struck the village, and Benedict helped his uncle, the priest, in caring for the sick. Well, his uncle died of the plague. And here he was, Benedict, at the age of 18. His parents would not give him their blessing to enter the faraway abbey of La Trappe, but they did agree upon the local Carthusian monastery. So Benedict sought entry, but they rejected him due to frail health. Another Carthusian community, however, did accept him, and so at 19 he joyfully entered. But a few weeks later, he came home to his parents' farm, and he had experienced a terrible misery like no other suffering on earth. 2 years passed, and at the age of 21, Benedict left his family convinced that he must try again to enter the monastery. But 3 months later, he wrote to his parents that the Carthusians found him unsuited to their life, and that he had left them. And he wrote this to his parents. And this was a memorable letter that he would write to his parents. He wrote this: "I look on this as a command from God, calling me to something more perfect still. They said themselves that it was the hand of God taking me from them. I am therefore setting out for La Trappe, where I have always so longed to be." And he begged for his parents' blessing. This would be the fulfillment of his life's dream. But when he got there, La Trappe refused to have him. He had not waited long enough since leaving the Carthusians. Impatience was not compatible with the self-denial needed of a monk. And so Benedict walked across France for nearly a month to reach another monastery, and he knocked on the door of the Abbey of Septfonds, the Seven Fountains. He knelt, and he begged to enter. At the age of 22, then, he became Frère Urbain, or rather, Brother Urban. He suffered a great spiritual desolation there, and despaired of God's love for him. He suffered from scrupulosity, and accused himself of sins that he had not even committed. In April, he fell seriously ill, and the superior came to visit him in the monastery infirmary, and Brother Urban heard these words: "My son, God is not calling you to our order." The novice murmured, "Fiat voluntas tua," thy will be done. When he recovered, he decided that he must make a pilgrimage. He would make a pilgrimage to Rome, to the tombs of the apostles. And during this journey, a burst of light, he suddenly realized that his vocation was to be a pilgrim. His life was not without direction. And so, with the same total submission that he had brought to the monastic life, he now embraced the career of a pilgrim, as if it were an established way of life. He still believed, however, that after his pilgrimage he would someday enter a monastery somewhere. His spirituality was meanwhile growing away from scrupulosity to serenity by reading from the sermons of Luis of Granada. Now, I don't know if the sermons of Luis of Granada are available in print. I mean, they probably are. I haven't seen them. But you would know Luis of Granada for his famous work, The Sinner's Guide. So it's the same writer. And that book is readily available in English. Nevertheless, he was reading the sermons of Luis of Granada, and his spirituality was growing away from scrupulosity to serenity. And he carried with him this book on his journeys by foot across Europe to visit all the major shrines between the years of 1770 and 1777. So for 7 years he walked to all the major shrines all over Europe. Well, upon visiting Assisi, he stayed with the Franciscans, and they gave him a robe from the Franciscan habit to wear around his waist. And so his religious garb became the clothing of a pilgrim. I'm going to show you a picture of him here. Now here's a picture of him in his pilgrim garb. You can see him with that rope around his waist that he got from the Franciscans, and he has a walking stick and some sort of curious a gourd, a dried out gourd. Maybe he carried water or something in there. I'm not sure. And then over here you see his shoes hanging over his shoulder. Well, he was dressed then in the clothing of a pilgrim. He wore a cloak with a rope tied around his waist. He had a rosary around his neck. Let's see, do we see that? Well, he's carrying the rosary here, but you can see here where he has the rosary around his neck. A three-cornered hat, a crucifix, and a wallet in the form of a bag in which he collected holy cards, medals, and other mementos of his pilgrimages. And he carried 4 books with him: a Bible, a Roman breviary, the Imitation of Christ, and the sermons of Luis of Granada. And sometimes he added rocks to make his load heavier as a form of penance. Well, he was often considered to be a tramp and a beggar, and even children sometimes yelled at him and threw rocks at him. He offered this humiliation up as a sacrifice of love to God. Others, however, recognized his purity of heart, and in his many encounters with the sick and the downhearted, he is remembered as being a source of comfort and even of miraculous healing. Well, after 7 years of walking, he settled in Rome in 1777, and he lived for a time at the Colosseum under the 5th station of the cross, where he slept on ferns and straw and erected a small chapel. And here he prayed the breviary in Latin by candlelight, and he made the way of the cross by moonlight, extending his arms in the form of a cross and offering himself to God as a victim, to be humiliated, spat upon, scorned, a man and no worm. He never begged for alms, but he received what was given to him in charity. He then took only as much as was absolutely necessary, and often gave away even that, especially if he saw a mother and children who were hungry. He took it upon himself to preach truth and goodness and purity to pilgrims, beggars, rich and poor. People remembered him, and they listened to him. He was known on the streets of Rome as a saint. He sought out the Blessed Sacrament wherever it was exposed for adoration. He had 3 spiritual directors and confessors in Rome, and although he felt himself unworthy to receive Holy Communion, he did so out of obedience on a weekly basis, but only in the very early morning when the least number of people would see him. We come to Friday before Palm Sunday in the year 1783. He's now been in Rome for about 6 years. Benedict came to St. Ignatius Church in Rome and was kneeling near the Lady Altar. I'm going to give you, now this is probably not from St. Ignatius Church in Rome, but it is an image of him attending Mass here, kneeling before the altar, probably after having received Holy Communion. You can see the ablution happening there. So he was kneeling near the Lady Altar, and his confessor, Father Marconi, observed a strange radiance about him. The poor man talked to Father Marconi, and as he listened, he looked at the arms emerging from the sleeves, the arms of a skeleton, with just enough flesh to nourish the vermin that never left him alone. Benedict told his confessor that he was now free of all temptation. Well, Father Marconi knew what that meant. It meant that he was preparing to die. It was a prelude to death. Well, Benedict then, at the age of 35, received absolution and Holy Communion that day. He was then seen on Palm Sunday in many churches, including Santa Croce, where he venerated the relics of the Passion. On Holy Monday, he was seen at St. Ignatius and at the Church of the Holy Apostles. On Holy Tuesday, he was seen at St. Praxedes, venerating the pillar at which Christ was scourged. And Holy Wednesday, April 16th, 1783. Benedict could hardly stand, but he took a staff and he walked to the church of the Madonna dei Monti. The people there had a profound respect for him, calling him Il Signore Benedetto, Sir Benedict. The Passion was read at Mass that day, and the people believed that Benedict would expire at the same time as Christ. Benedict made it through the Mass. He received his last Holy Communion, and he stumbled and fell on the steps leaving the church. He asked to be put on the ground. He was still a Trappist in spirit, and he remembered that the Trappists always lay on straw and ashes to die. Well, the butcher rushed to care for him and took him to his house. He tried to feed him and care for his wounds. The priest rushed over and gave him extreme unction and prayed the prayers of the dying. At nightfall, the bells of Rome began to ring for the praying of the Salve Regina, and at the sound of the bells, and at the invocation of the Blessed Mother of God, Benedict expired. On Holy Thursday morning, the streets of Rome rang out with the voices of children proclaiming that a saint was dead. His parents had not heard from him since 1770, and now his name was famous all over Europe as a saint. 130 miracles were attributed to him within a matter of months. At Easter brought many conversions among the people of Rome, especially among beggars who reformed their lives. May this Easter be a time of conversion for us, as we consider this holy and humble life of a saint who wished to humble himself living as a monk without a monastery. He wished to please God by offering himself as a pleasing oblation. Let us each do the same in our own way, as God provides for us. In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. Saint Benedict Joseph Labré, pray for us. Please subscribe to this video channel. If you like this video, please share it with a friend, and don't miss a day of prayer with us.